front of the National Museum of Korea. This is my first visit to the city and this country, and the azaleas are in full blossom. This National Museum of Korea is considered one of the 8th or 10th biggest museum in the world. Children running after visiting the museum, and the view from the museum is just phenomenal. With the lake in front. There's a special exhibit of Buddha with lotus flower with a swastika on the chest. The view from the top, I'm standing on the 3rd floor, and the view is just phenomenal. This is a Buddhist art section. This is the development of Buddhist art from 6th century to 12th century. These are the Buddhist images of Sella. This is from the United Sella period, which is 692 AD. Buddha's images of India. And China. From there it moved on to Korea, followed by Japan. With this, one can see how the facial changes, including the flattening of the nose, has occurred of Buddha's image. Mudra is the hand gesture which was very much expressed by Buddha, a word taken from Sanskrit. Of the two divisions of Buddhism, Tapo Panasi or so, they believed in a historic Buddha followed in India, Ceylon and Thailand, whereas the Mahayani Buddha, they believe in several forms, including one for healing, the happy Buddha, and so on and so forth. This is more in China, whereas in Korea they follow the former one. This is what is referred to as a Lotus Buddha, which is huge, as one can see, probably measuring about 3 floors. These are huge Buddhas exhibited in this area. These are all iron, and starting from there is stone. All of this are from United Sella period. Section of Buddhist paintings in the museum. An example of Korean Buddhist painting. Another view of the museum from the interior with the Buddha stupa on the second floor. This pagoda was actually 10-story high, was erected in 1348. Lantern is from United Sella period and is extremely well done and is about 8 to 10 feet tall. This referred to as an ammikalli in Tamil is from the Neolithic period of grinding masalas and has been used even earlier in the Korean area by the primitive people. Jar coffin from the 5th century, which is referred to the three kingdoms. There are three kingdoms existed, one of which was Sella. There is one in the north, currently the North Korea, and one more in South Korea. Korean Hanumanji. This concept existed in the Sella dynasty, which was in the 5th century, but it was not a god in their belief. In the United Sella period, there are 8 Buddhist Garudas. These are divine beings, consisted of various deities, and to protect Dharma, and these are clearly of the Sanskrit words. For example, Deva, Asura, Gandharva, musical deity, Garuda, the eagle, and Naga, the dragon. Almost looks Brahma. Even though there is a considerable influence of India, not much is mentioned in the museum. Credit has been given to China, as many of these kings and the Buddhist monks went to China and returned to Korea to spread Buddhism. This is Seoul sightseeing tour. This is the presidential blue house, and there's a circle in front of it with some nice statues around. The day is very cloudy. The actual palace is this one for the president. That is a nice tour guide waving or protesting. This is the phoenix in the center of the circle, apparently symbol of peace. This is a drum. In the past, when there was a king, there is a difference in the commoner and the different class of people. If there is any injustice, they can come and beat this so that the king can hear, whose palace was nearby, to correct any problems. Kango Queen Palace, built in 1395 after Joseon, Joseon dynasty. This was part of the middle of the three kingdoms that existed from the 4th century AD in Korea. As one gets closer, you can see the beauty of the architecture of the 14th century construction. There is a nice bridge across of the granite construction. Ending. This is the outer courtyard. Closeness of the statue. There is always a canal built like this. There is no water now to separate the commoner from the royal members. There are 5 entrances, middle for the king, next to that left and the right for the military and the civilian palace workers, and the small one for the commoner. Inside these things one can see the nice paintings, so colorful and still well preserved, maybe, unless it is repainted. There are 3 levels to walk. Middle of course is for the king, next is the civilian and the military, and the third is the lowest one. And these stones to indicate based on the rank where the people are to stand, the highest one go to the front, the lowest to the back. This is the palace. The bunch of Korean students having a group picture taken. This is the palace. One can see the beauty, including the wooden carving work. The nice location. All around is the corridors. With some urn at each corner on both sides. This is the main throne for the king and for the high officials. My guide now tells me that these are all repainted, and every year they kind of give a touch up, not the original as I first thought. From one end to the other, this is the view, including the painting showing sun and moon represent king and queen, or yang and yang, and 5 mountains symbolize Korean peninsula. This is evidence of Japanese who destroyed in 1910 and how things are rebuilt. Winter office of the king, where is to sit for administrative purposes. Building was heated in winter time with a firewood, and the smoke is to come out in chimney, whereas the summer building, bigger and located there, did not have any heating segment. This is the Korean sundial, which is different than that of the Roman time. Close up one can see the sun, and the moon is painted more like a red, and the 5 mountains of the Korean peninsula more clearly. The royal party hall, one of the most beautiful part of the palace complex. With water surrounding it. King's living quarters, again with the heated setup. Well, the king had only 1 queen, but was permitted to have more wives. All the support structures are around. This is the interior of the living quarters. Again, one has to admit this is all redone, possibly maintaining the original appearance as much as evidence is available. One can see the seating arrangement again on the cushion, sitting on the floor. Water supply for the palace was from this well with a covered lid of granite. This is the queen quarters located behind the king's quarters. More simple is the queen's quarters, the furniture, and the furniture was also made based on the gender in that era in Korea. The furniture from here is more delicate and seats were a little lower. A bit of palace garden with some nice flowers. This is a chimney not destroyed by anything including by the Japanese, and one can see the well preserved original structure including the bricks of that era, that is the 14th century. This is an appearance of some of these buildings before, that is in 1930, before the Japanese destroyed during Second War. That is being rebuilt now. One can see the lumber and some machines working. When the whole structure is done, this is how it's going to be look like. This is an appearance, the picture postcard on the back of the palace with a bridge, water, and some water lilies or lotus. Lotus is very popular as it is symbolizes Buddhism. And this is another construction. This is also part of the palace, rebuilt, not open to public. This is the National Folk Museum located within this palace complex. This is the National Folk Museum of Korea. These are various statues of animals from cow, monkey, dog, rabbit, pig, etc. I'm not sure the symbolism, as it's a folk museum. I'm sure it's some folk art or folk faith. A beautiful painting inside the wall, very colorful. Appearance in the ancient time in the folk museum. With the workmanship including taking out the gold ornaments. And an ironsmith. The king and the queen. Here a view of the housing, pagodas, modern yet ancient. Rice, barley, millet and soya bean are all very ancient, as this is all cultivated here. The earliest available data goes back to 57 BC of Korean culture. One of the village or folk rituals. Plow with a single bullock. Some of the ancient costumes of men and women. Weaving with charaka. Again, cotton was the predominant fabric before. I didn't see silk, and I wonder how much of all these came along with Buddhism. But our Buddhism came only much later. Kimachi making with the cabbage and salting. Of course, garlic is not forgotten. And also I see the red chilies. Red chilies came from South America, not sure when they got it. They don't tell me the instruction when the kimachi started making. There are different varieties. Red radish is also used along with onion. There are 200 varieties of kimachis made. It's one of the most spiciest food they indicate. Kimchi is said to be very nutritious. Some of the vitamins and all are well preserved. The puppet show. This appears acquired from India, as India was the first country to make the puppet show. But there is not enough credit given to Indian impact in Korea so far, I have seen, while so much is given in China and Japan and other Asian countries. Do you believe this is a placenta chamber? After the birth of the baby, the placenta is put into this one. Education of Korean school. Bride's palanquin. After the wedding she was taken in this. The size is very small. Does this mean that after wedding her life will be restricted as small as this compared to the palaki the Indian bride was taken was much larger? This approach I still see in Korea as there's more restriction on women than men from what I'm seeing in 2007. Korean medicine called Hayak Bang is a blend of pharmacology and acupuncture, and the first written document did not emerge before 1700s. One can see some of the herbal preparation and their storage. This is exorcism for curing smallpox. That included Trishul. I don't know where they got this from. Sangyo or bear is the one that was used to carry the corpse to the burial ground. Keeping with the Buddhist faith, cremation is done more than burial, with the burial being practiced prior to arrival of Buddhism. These are the ancient coins of Korea. End of palace and folk museum trip with a cup of coffee. The colorful Joge Buddhist temple gets more colorful as you go. The celebration is for the Buddha Jayanti that is coming up this month. That's the reason of colorful. These guys are working to put it up. Korean Buddhist worship. Compared to China, where lots of incense is used, I see the candle, the single stick of incense, that makes a lot more sense. Making of the lotus thing for the Buddha Jayanti. Lotus tent is already made. And if you see the letter, it is Om. Can't mistake it. In Korean it is called Umta and it's Om. They translated. These are made of paper as per Kim, our tour guide. This represents lotus, the symbol of Buddhism. Like anywhere else, these are stores, and of course there are colorful things to buy. Korean folk village entrance. Korean version of Linga. Asking for the details. Wish mountain. You write on the piece of paper of your wish. It sure beat the Santa Claus.
What does it mean?
They keeping away the bad spirit.
Okay, now these are the ancestors representing one's ancestors, or are they just designed to keep the spirits away?
It doesn't mean ancestor.
Oh, okay. Where are we talking about here? Is this 15th century?
No, from 1392.
Korean cow. The ancient, of course, milk was important. Grinder. I'm sure it's pulled by the bullocks.
Bear.
This is called bamboo
Always
rice.
man first.
Well, that was true everywhere. So that time.
Summertime is too hot. Due to the body
Not exactly.
heat.
Not still that way,
That's
but
how they
not
start.
exactly.
Changing quickly.
Restricted only to men in Korea. This is like a barbecue for summer cooking. This cooking system is no different than what was done in India,
Korean export.
except these pots are buried here, elsewhere they are not.
Height.
Right,
Height
it's but in the floor, right? Or is it not in the
Old-fashioned cafe with the modern prices. A cup of tea is about $3.50.
Ginger.
Oh, it's ginger. Oh, Hannah, you should try this. It's delicious. Just take a sip. Tiny sip.
Yeah, you Korean.
Know what this means? Must be some luck stuff. Nice gazebo.
And you can
Lie down here.
sit. Not like.
Can't lie down. Can't take a nap.
And yeah, this is the process how we make.
Korean
You know, my
Korean handmade paper being finished. Kimchi factory. One can see the parts and parts of it. This was from the central part of the Korea. Traditional village or a folk village. Chandak Palace, one of the 5 palaces of the Joseon dynasty, which became the main palace in 15th century. This is designated as one of the World Heritage by UNESCO. Museum of the Korean Buddhist art, located in a very residential area next to the palace. Korean piece, the drum, Tibetan pieces. Only in this occasion I was allowed to videotape, not in the Korean section. This is Vajrapani. One can see the appearance of Rakshasa as the Hinduism moved, rather Buddhism moved from India to Tibet first on its way to China. Painting of Temple of Lhasa. In this museum they never tell the age of their acquisition, just the names. This is a manuscript cover. We have one of those with a beautiful painting. This is an older manuscript and one is in a box. Four-handed Bodhisattva Avaleshwara. Needless to say of the concept of four hands. Gautama Buddha is referred to as a Sankhya Muni, again the word Muni from Sanskrit. Then the eight-armed Avaleshwara, action Avalokeshwara, Avalokeshwara, leading on to 11-head Avalokeshwara. This is a Buddhist sermon altar. This is the second type, more elaborate, and a third more simple one. This painting of unknown date depicts Ivajra. I don't know what that means. There's the word Mahakala is also used, but the description is in Korean. This painting is referred to as a Vajrapani. Dragger is referred to as Vajra. This carving is actually done on a human skull cap. In fact, the skull cap was also used as a cup for drinking, as it meant it gave some enormous strength if drank from that cup. This is a painting of Dakini. The concept of Dakini is also described in Hinduism, possibly between the 8th and 10th century during the Tantric era. This is one of the old, undated painting of Buddha Sankhya Muni. This is a painting of celestial palace of Padma Sambhava, again as if it is Indra. And of course, conch was also used as a prayer instrument, but it is more decorated. This is a skull drum, looks to be the skull of a child. Caps put on the opposite side. This instrument looks almost like a lower end of femur bone. This painting is that of Tara. Tara is generally represented as green, but here it is referred as a white Tara. This is again a Vajra, a dragger with a different form, and this painting is referred to as a Vajra Sattva. As I see more of this, I am getting more confused, and needless to say, I am the only one in this museum now. This is a prayer wheel Buddhism was introduced to Korea in the late 4th century, and subsequently the art developed over the ages. A drum, and it is well preserved. The language on the drum is Tibetan. One can see the close resemblance to Sanskrit.